the grace of God bless man and every woman in this land. Stay strong, keep your faith alive. Whatever comes to meet us, know the darkness won't defeat us. Stay strong and keep your faith alive.
So our focus today is psychic protection. And I'm going to try to talk just a little bit about psychic protection by focusing on the elements, the elemental keynotes of vibration. Like today, for instance, earthing is very, very popular. There's a renaissance in earthing. Many years ago, the sage, Dr. Randolph Stone, recommended walking barefoot in the wet grass every morning. Now they've even shown how your body chemistry, how the whole electrochemistry of your body is influenced by earthing. And certainly they sell earthing mats and earthing sheets. And but walking barefoot on the earth in the morning is our natural form of earthing. And your knees, ruled by Capricorn, are a very special earthing. So when you're gardening, if you can actually get your knees close to the earth, or so that there's only cotton or wool between your knees and the earth, it's a very profound form of earthing. And of course, in India, who are masters of subtle energy, you throw your whole body on the earth. Like when you're in Vrindavan, the home of Krishna, you roll in the dust that Krishna once walked upon. Or when you get to Badrinath in the high Himalayas, you have a couple of people guide your way, and you just roll around the sanctum sanctorum and just totally surrender and take in the energy of that environment. I remember once my son, when he was 10, he would do anything to get out of school. So he came on me to a pilgrimage to India. And we had taken horses up into the high Himalayas to Kedarnath. And in Kedarnath, this rock is worshipped. That in legendary times there was a water buffalo. The Shiva had turned himself into this water buffalo. And the 5 Pandavas who were in search of celestial weapons, each one grabbed the leg of the water buffalo, and they pulled the buffalo, ended up pulling the buffalo apart. And the hump of that buffalo is now worshipped as this rock for thousands and thousands of years. And my son, and they closed this place because it's in the high Himalayas, maybe 10,000 feet or so. And so there's vast quantities of snow. So we were there for the first day when the monks were returning to the temple in March to open it up after the winter snowstorm. And there were like 11-foot snow drifts. We had a path that had been cut through the snow drift to reach the temple.
I didn't know you took him then.
Yeah. And so we were like the first people after a whole winter of like 4 or 5 months where no one had been to this. And the beautiful thing about a Shiva temple is Shiva lets us all come in equally. There's no Brahmins, we're all Brahmins. We can all pray. And so we were able to just caress this lingam, caress this rock, and put our foreheads to this rock and just enjoy the ecstasy of the moment. So I guess worship, any form of devotion, certainly as you commune with essence, just scatters the elements. But traditionally you would full body prostrate to a deity or to a guru, to anything that represented incredible consciousness. And I guess it was a way of grounding, as a way of opening to the subtle energy, to the grace that's there. But in any case, the earthing is really, really important with all of the electronic pollution that we have in our space. And it's very important because we live such sedentary lifestyles. So if my sage wife would go out each morning with a rosary and chant her mala, chant her mantra, and so walk for 108 on a good morning.
Yeah, except now all the neighborhood dogs come and poop on our lawn, and I
So
can't do it anymore. They took over the lawn.
So it's very important in psychic protection to get that first poop off the lawn. Once that first poop is there, then your lawn becomes territorial. So moving right along. Okay, I was wondering why you stopped.
I don't want to complain.
Oh, the joys of modern living. So we're talking about the elements, and we're talking about grounding, and we can even ground through visualization or intention. Just realize that you know, I begin a body work session. I always picture my legs like the roots of a tree, and through my intention, this visualization of my legs rooting down into Mother Earth like the roots of a tree, and then breathing down my legs and breathing up, you know, because we are part of the breath of heaven, dancing with the breath of earth. You know, there's everything that exists is happening between these two fields, the fields of the infinite, and then the way that all grounds here on the earth. And so there's this, we are part of the atmosphere, the spheres of breath, the life breath of a living earth. So anytime that you can, you know, traditionally we earth through hard work and that moving all that energy and working hard physically was our classic way of earthing. That many of us don't have anymore. So fortunately, we can earth through through simply taking our feet off and walking in the moist earth. Barefoot. All our shoes are made of plastic. Today, I ordered a pair of leather moccasins. Might actually, well, I guess if you can walk barefoot, great. But even leather moccasins are better than a plastic sole or rubber sole that most of us are using today, plastic soap. Great. Any question? Anyone want to contribute more to ways of earthing that have served you, ways of connecting with the earth? I imagine, you know, most of us hike as a way of earthing. Some of you may do some climbing in different ways as a way of earthing. And of course, there are mud baths as a way of earthing. And clay, whoa, what amazing. I have a brother and clay is his medicine. You know, he does mud packs and clay packs. And he comes from a school called naturopathy, where they say, just remove the insults. Nature will take care of the rest. Mm-hmm. So he just goes into a pure setting and does clay packs and enemas and water and juice and air, and just trusts the perfection within him. So nature care, where we just use the earth and mud baths and mud packs as our healing medicine. Mahatma Gandhi was a student of nature care. Mm-hmm. Next, I'm blessed and honored to talk about grandmother water. It's really important to address these elementals as the roots of our own life and the roots of our own being. We can't have enough respect for the elementals. You know, excuse me, Mother Earth, you are a living being and you have agency and you have beauty and power, and you live through me as an important part of me. So realize that anytime you recognize the agency of these other intelligence, because there's only intelligence. We live in a vast fabric of intelligence. The stuff of this creation is intelligence. And traditional people everywhere recognize the agency and the intelligence of all creation and address the agency at all times. So for instance, in Hinduism, you always begin with a prayer to Ganesha, the Lord of the Ganas, the Lord of the nature spirits, the elves, the goblins, the gnomes, the intelligences that are in the rocks, the mountains, the springs, the rivers, the life of the earth around you. So you always began with an invocation of Lord Ganesha, and actually Ganesha as Vinayaka, the remover of obstacles, was believed because the obstacles were right here on the earth plane in our relation, in our feng shui, and our relationship to the environment without and the environment within. So addressing these agents in our environment was the foundation of ridding ourselves of these forces that frustrated us or frustrated our desires. But in any case, we're beginning to talk about grandmother water, and water is the original medicine. Okay, water is the original medicine. You know, I remember an age when you went to see a doctor and they always said, drink plenty of water. That's the get plenty of rest. Stillness, you're ill because you're not still. So stillness and water are the fundamental medicines. You know, allopathic drug just has to prove that it's 50% more effective than a placebo. That's all. Only 50% more effective than the placebo. What's the placebo that we're talking about? Rest and water give us the baseline of healing that we add whatever effects other forms of healing do. But grandmother water is the original is the original medicine. And you have to understand that our body is ultrasonic. Our body is made of music, and water is infinitely pure. And so that whenever you bring water to your lips, to the core of your body, she's like a living tuning fork to the highest essence. That her nature is just so coherent that she brings the purest of vibration. Now, most of the water that most of us is drinking is dead water, because in nature, water is always flowing. In India, it's taboo to bring a bottle to your lips because you kill the water. When you pour water, it spirates because water is so attuned to this essence right here, this quintessence right here, this Shakti, this power, this breath that has touched God's lips is right here. The Creator is breathing this life right here. And so when you pour this water, it spirates and it tunes to this life field in the most profound way. So drink your water alive, not dead. You don't have to do a big thing. You don't have to buy a device. You just have to get in the habit of not drenching yourself.
Well done.
Only a slight baptism. So water is the original medicine. So we use water in really profound ways in our life. Like I like to take a shower every morning, and water is the foundation of psychic cleanliness and psychic protection. Like you can go into that shower feeling like roadkill, and you come out and you're nearly normal. And that is the power of water to cleanse your aura and to ground your field. Do you hear that? That your body's 80% water, that when you shower, or again in India, you can't take a bath. You can only pour the water. You need to put that spirated water on you to get the full value. Now, I'm talking about Earth. Earth is the end of the cycle. So particularly when you're dealing with a lot of psychic garbage, or if you happen to be very sensitive, then of course a salt bath will attract. And if you're going through any kind of emotional crisis or cleansing or healing crisis or chaos in your family, or just the psychic garbage of living in the city, or the psychic garbage of the shit job, that getting into that water, getting into that salts, because the salts will ground you, they'll pull that right out of your aura, speaking on the edge of earth and water. So one of the foundations of our psychic protection is, of course, grandmother water, and the blessing, grace. They say that yogis bathe 7 times a day. that they bathe in the living water, that they bathe in the Ganga. When I was visited Gangotri at the mouth of the Ganga in the high Himalayas, they just, to keep the Ganga clean, they just put in a septic system by each of these ancient caves. And because they couldn't afford to bring the wires out, they gave each of these caves a battery and a solar panel and a tube light. And the sages who were living in the caves were very happy to rent you a cave in the Himalayas. So when India opens up again, you ever have a dream of meditating in a 1,000-year-old cave, you can go up to Gangotri, the mouth of the Ganga, and there may be a cave for rent for you. Moving right along. Let's go. India's locked down at the moment, so I don't think it'll be too easy to cave, but you can put that on your bucket list. Spending a month or two in a cave in the Himalayas. The biggest thing is that the Ganga roars like a train there. You can't, it's just roaring right there next to you. You're in all this incredible Shakti where the glacier that feeds the Ganga is just storming. And they say that every once in a while, a boulder that's holding back these glacial lakes will move, and everything in its wake will be wiped out. So you take a little bit of a chance in your cave like anywhere. But we're talking about water as an interdimensional portal, and we're talking about the purity of grandmother water. And we're understanding the quality of water is grounding, that water is always moving centripetally. And to be watery is to be attractive, that water attracts the psychic garbage and sucks it into this vortex, that water's an energy sink. You hear that in a lot of systems of esoteric ritual and systems of ritual. They're very afraid of the feminine because of this attractive and grounding power. But we are very much attuned to that as an instrument of psychic protection and of grounding. So typically after doing any kind of close contact work with a client, or anytime you may feel like you need psychic protection, the wrists resonate with the water chakra. So bringing cold water to the wrist. And again, these are reflexes to the colon, to the ascending and to the descending colon. So bringing cold water, these colon reflexes, and cold water to the wrists, and picturing that sink and the magnetic powers of that water, literally sucking the impurities off your auric field. Okay, you understand that. In fact, some psychics and people who work with subtle energy will just keep a cup of water, a cup of salt water where they work, and will pour that water out at the end of the day or at the end of each session. Particularly if you're doing blood and guts healing work, you want to keep that water there. So that is just the, traditionally, when you entered a home, you took off your shoes, you washed your feet, you washed your hands. Do you hear the purification that's in there? And that home had a well, that you were being tuned into the essence of that home, the water of that home. I know if you enter a traditional Native American home, they'll offer you water from that well first off. And in many traditions, when you enter a home, you're offered water. You're offered water when you enter a restaurant as a way of psychic protection. Because again, anytime you bring that water to your lips, it's grounding, it's healing. Yeah. So there's so much to say about water. We're running a very short format today in terms of the topic we've taken and the things we're playing with. Would anyone like to add something more about grandmother water and using, or we haven't even talked about using grandmother water ritually. In every church in the world, water is the medium that you pray into that water, or the priest or the priestess prays into that water, and then the water is given as a sacrament. So that, again, water is such an incredible medium for consciousness. In India, Brahmins are charged with the task of preparing water for the whole community, and that their whole life is devoted to preparing this water. And each morning you go to take that water, and each evening you go to take that water at least 2 times a day. Traditionally, you went to that corner temple, and that priest, you held out your hand, and the priest poured some of that water into your hand, and sometimes gave you some of the sandal paste that had been put on the deity, or touched your eye with the booty. But in any case, the foundation was the sacred water that the priest poured into your hands and that you put to your lips. And again, the water was from a beaker that spiraled it, a long spouted beaker that spiraled it. But again, what we're talking about is this incredible sacred heart that we have, we're given the gift of life, and the incredible purity that is inherent in life, and how classically that priest or priestess in every tradition was given a life devoted to creating a sacrament, and the vehicle of that sacrament is water. So one of the most wonderful things about our contemporary Wiccan movement on this Samhain Eve here is they invite you to make your own ritual. They empower you, dear warlocks and witches, to just really trust your intention and trust your beauty, and to just use your imagination and create your own ritual.
I don't know if you remember, because you weren't there, but I was one time ago, I was at an all-night prayer service in a teepee.
Yes.
With your Cheyenne brothers.
Yes.
Billy, Ralph, and Nelson.
Yes.
And Nelson was conducting, and Billy Ralph was in there with him. And these are 2 brothers who, yeah, they were very dear to us, and they were very important teachers to me. And Billy Ralph became quite ill during the meeting. He was not well, and he became quite sick. And a lot of the people wanted him to be taken to a hospital, because we were way out in the boonies, and wanted him to be wanted an ambulance called, or him taken down the hill, and he and the 2 brothers, the way they dealt with it was really something. That here were people who had modern medicine at their disposal, but they knew so much about healing, and they knew so much about all kinds of medicines that were available to them as healers, as Native American healers. And what Nelson chose to use to heal his brother, that was so dearer than life to him, was water. And he just took some water and prayed over it. And he had his brother sit on his knees. Bruce was talking about on your knees, on the earth, and sitting in front of the fire. So the fire was reflecting on him. And he gave him, in absolute reverence, gave him this water to drink. And in that same reverence, Billy drank that water, and it was really humbling to watch that. It was really moving, and to see that within the whole world of healing, he turned to water, knowing that it was the great healer, that he could trust his brother's life.
Well, thank you.
Let the grace of God bless man and every woman in this land. Stay strong, keep your faith alive. Whatever comes to meet us, know the darkness won't defeat us. Stay strong and keep your faith alive.